I did this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I enjoyed it. But I thought, why do it at all? You don't have any followers. There's nobody watching. So why concern yourself? And I thought to myself, as I often do, if you talk to nobody with no cameras, then your family starts making some phone calls and worrying about you. But if you put at least one camera in front of you, now you're no longer uh, the early stages of a problem. Now you're a vlogger. So it doesn't really matter if nobody's watching. And so I like to work things out in my head and work things out with other people. And I finally did something that I've been intending to do for years now, which is I played a game that I said I'm going to play uh, for a very long time. So I am not an RPG player personally. I don't play a lot of them, turn-based or otherwise, which is fine. Everyone can play whatever they like. But I did play Earthbound back when I was younger, and again recently as I am an adult, my wife was really curious as to how the game played. And I love Earthbound so much. As anybody who's ever met someone who plays Earthbound or has played Earthbound, you know that they probably love it a lot and they won't stop talking about it. So, about 5 years ago, we started hearing about this game called Undertale. And the phrase I hear more than anything else is, if you liked Earthbound. And that was pretty much it. There really wasn't anything else you could say about this game because it was heavily inspired by Earthbound, which was enough for me, but I'm not a PC gamer, and this was a PC game, which, I have a PC. It's severely outdated. It's where I do all my work, um, but lifetime console gamer, PC gaming just kind of makes me uncomfortable. I can't really invest in it. It's just a little expensive. I know this is a cheap game. It's not like a graphical powerhouse game, but that's besides the point. The point is I just never found the time. Until, I think, 2 years ago when they finally put it on the Switch. And I was like, finally, I'm going to get to play Undertale. In fact, I'd walk around at conventions, I would talk to Earthbound fans, and they would ask me, have you played Undertale? And it sort of became a running joke where I'm like, I swear, I am going to play Undertale. And I never did. Just sat on there. I don't know why. It's the fear of commitment. In fact, since I've played the game, I've talked to at least 3 people who have said the exact same thing. Oh, I want to play it, but I haven't played it. And for that reason, I don't really feel comfortable spoiling it. Because if I was able to maintain a a spoiler-free zone in my experience with the game for 5 years, then somebody else probably has done the same. But I really did enjoy it, Undertale. Um, and I finally stepped in, and I was like, put the kid to sleep, and I asked Vicky, he's like, hey, is it cool if I just put this game on now? And I did, and I played it, and I loved it. Everything about it was true. Everything that everybody said was true, that if you played Earthbound, if you liked Earthbound at all, you would love this game, and I did. Um, Spoilers for myself were kept at largely a minimum. I had a small amount of knowledge from the game. I mean, I had heard Megalovania. They put it in Smash Brothers, so I knew who Sans was, even if I didn't necessarily know how important he was. Um, I saw last year at Halloween Kenny Omega come out on AEW as Sans to Megalovania, and all of this was just like, hey, this is. It was almost like constantly like poking me, like, hey, Spazo, you still need to play this game. You still need to play this game. And so I finally did, and it's a brilliant game. I've beaten it multiple times since I started it on Wednesday or last Wednesday. I don't remember. Beaten it multiple times. I loved it. My wife loved it. And that soundtrack is killer. I can't, like, normally I can play a game and there's like 4 or 5 songs and I'm just like, this is all going onto my playlist. And this entire soundtrack has to go on my playlist. It's just a brilliant game. But most importantly, I had finally made it where I wanted to be, which is I could no longer have to worry about segregating myself from fans who have played the game. I'm now in. I am in the fandom, because I have played the game, and I had in fact beaten the game. So I was grateful, and now as a fan, all I was thinking of was, I might be 5 years late, but I'm coming to the party. This is where the party is. All right, party. The party. I can now come to the party. That probably was one of the most exciting things. Everything from fan art to message boards to just all of the ancillary information that comes from being a fan. Stuff I avoided for years. I could finally step in and do it, and I was really, really grateful for that opportunity. To finally share. It was very similar to when we first started watching Doctor Who, because we would go to conventions and we would see Daleks and we would see people who we presumed were dressed as the Doctor, and you look at those things, you see that stuff, and you have no context for it. So while you can understand, and this goes for anything, you can see characters dressed in robes with lightsabers or with forehead makeup, and be like, okay, that's something from Star Trek, but I don't know what it is or what have you. And then it's like a door gets unlocked. You know what I mean? You now have the key. You have the key to this new world. And it was always there, but you never saw it. So now, I'm ready to go to this party. It's been 5 years and I'm showing up late. And I am ready to go to this party for Undertale. And I'll try to keep it spoiler-free, as it is. But there was a problem. And the problem was, sometimes you can show up to a party, and if you show up late, the house may have burned down already. And all I can think of is, why? Now, I'm here 5 years later. This game's been out for a very long time. And why was it that when I finally start doing some reading, what I read is lots of testimonials, not about being a part of a inspiring community or getting a lot of support in a shared experience, but rather people saying, I used to be a fan. I used to be a fan. And what changed? It's only one game. It's not like there's a new movie that came out or a new sequel that came out that, like, I know in the case of The Last of Us, a sequel comes out and everybody's like, oh, well, this sequel is terrible and now we all hate it. I mean, that is a problem in and of itself. But, so why is it that I show up to the Undertale fandom house party and the house is already burned down? It's sad. I didn't necessarily wonder. I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for a whole bunch of, meeting new friends, although I do love doing that. But I don't understand why all of this is suddenly becoming poisonous for fans of what is generally a beautiful game. In every way I can calculate a game as beautiful. And what they cite is that the fans ruined it. That the fans ruined the experience of being a fan. And so, instead of getting to meet people and learn about how other people felt about the game and engage, instead I am wondering why. I'm kind of circling back to where I always am. Where we have gone wrong as fans. Where we continue to go wrong as fans. And I include myself in this. So, the Undertale fan party is over, apparently. And that's fine. I don't think it detracts at all from my experience with the game. And I am grateful that I had a chance and I finally, took that opportunity to play it. And I've got a whole bunch of other games in my queue that are ready to go as well. So I'm grateful. And it got me thinking again. Because I always am. And I like branding. All all the ways in which we break down that which we love and turn it into that which we hate. So what changes in a fan that will make them love something and then suddenly hate something? Hold on. Got to make sure if I'm talking all the time I can't spell correctly. All right. Everything needs a word because branding is important. Ideographs are important. Without catchphrases and buzzwords, it's very hard to sort of like tangibly grasp a concept that I'm trying to get here. Because I can explain it for 3.5 minutes, and I absolutely can, but I have to come up with a word that makes it, simplifies it, makes it easy. And so the process of a fan becoming a toxic fan. We hear a lot about toxic communities, the toxic Star Wars community or the toxic Smash Brothers community. Yeah. That. So what happens? And it's easy to blame other people or blame the bad apples or blame the people that are, you know, the bad people. But truth be told, we all do the things. I do the things. What are the things? What are the things that cause what I am referring to now as venomization? Venomization. Venomization is the process of a fan community and a fan, singular, being turned from someone who genuinely enjoyed something to finding a way to make people not enjoy it. And everybody does it. Everybody does venomization. I do it. I've been there. And I've broken it down into what I'm referring to, and I'm trying to work this out. See, that's just it. I don't have this all worked out yet. And so I'm working this out in my head, and I'm doing it in front of a camera. Not that I'm necessarily expecting anybody to help me out, though. If they do, by all means, that's great. What are the things we do, the traits we employ that venomize us into toxic fans, that go from fans to toxic fans? And yes, I know that creators of content, producers, directors, writers, and whatever, they make mistakes, and sometimes fans go sour as a result of the actions of creators. That is obviously true. You know, a creator can make a misstep, and the fans will call them out on it. And yes, that's real, it's true, and it is another step to venomization. But rather than worry about what other people do, I've always been concerned about what we do, because I'm not a member of a creator community, I'm a member of a fan community, which means the only thing I can really be responsible for is my own actions. And because I have to Catholicize everything, I have to inject a little bit of Catholicism into nearly everything I do. I'm breaking it down into what I call the 7 deadly fan sins, and I actually don't know what all 7 of them are. Now, I know what all of the 7 deadly sins are, the real ones. Don't make me list them, because I was repeating them in my head earlier, and you know what? Okay, here we go. Pride, which is number 1. Sloth, greed, gluttony, lust, wrath, and the 7th one. I'll get it. The point is, and then gluttony, greed. I'll figure it out. The point is that they represent all of which we do that makes us do bad. And that's why I'm kind of I've got a lot of them already worked out, but I'm trying to help sort of like quantify and qualify what the 7 deadly fan sins are. And I can't order them by number yet, because just like pride is the worst of the 7 deadly sins, I really don't know what the worst of the 7 deadly fan sins are. But I can think of a few of them already, and the first one that comes to mind is this one. Entitlement. So what entitlement means, and entitlement is a bad, you know, thing to kind of to have at any given time. Entitlement is a, you know, as a, maybe not as a service, but an entitlement and a sense of entitlement is something that you always need to be trying to make sure you're not necessarily projecting at all times. But what entitlement means is that a fan, by virtue of being a fan, believes that they are entitled to some amount of content, some amount of outcome. So an entitled fan may think that a show is meant to go the way you want because you've been there for so long. Or entitlement can also mean that, you know, you believe that you should be able to play whatever game you want because, you know, games are art or you can't afford them, as if, you know, well, entertainment is a right, which it's not. Entitlement can also mean that you just are not grateful for what you have. You always kind of want more because you feel like you deserve more, which is funny. Because when I grew up, and not to be all old man yells at cloud about it, but I will, I had 6 games for my NES. I had, you know, no cable. My entertainment choices were very limited, only when compared to the current available entertainment choices I had. When I was in high school, in the late 90s, the anime club was basically beholden to one person, the one person who had the means and the income to order whatever anime he wanted through mail order, because that's the only way you could do it, because you couldn't just watch whatever show you wanted. Anime was very hard to get and hard to consume. We basically had to be grateful for what we had. And now, today, we have more entertainment options, choices, and, you know, means to consume it than we ever have, more than we ever dreamed. I just watched an episode of Friends on my phone. No, I didn't. I was watching that on my TV. What did I watch on my phone? Maybe it was The Boys. I don't know. When I was in high school, I managed to get a portable TV for Christmas. This thing was the size of a Game Boy and had a really long antenna. And the idea was that it would pick up TV signals, you know, straight out of the air, the way they used to be transmitted, from anywhere. And I was so excited that I would finally be able to watch TV somewhere other than my home. We went camping, and I was desperately trying to get a signal in the middle of the woods of anything that this thing could pick up. And somehow I managed to get, in the middle of the night, in my tent, Jay Leno, through heavy static, on this tiny little screen, through an antenna, just catching his opening monologue. And that was all I could get, but I was so grateful for it. And now I can just throw up 1,000 saved episodes of any show from my phone, from anywhere I want. I can watch an entire series in the tent that I once could only watch a 10-minute monologue on. But where the sense of entitlement takes us is that we tend to think that because we've been loyal fans, that we are entitled to more. We need more content. This is where things like Dexit come in, because in the case of Dexit, which of course I discussed at length last year, was when Pokemon in Sword and Shield had to dump half of the Pokemon from the game in order to get it running on a new system, and everybody, you know, lost their minds. Never once did I get a good argument as to why it was, where the serious issue came with this particular issue, because what I kept hearing a lot of is like, well, they're just lazy, which is really funny coming from a lifetime consumer of media, because I'm sitting here and just consuming it. I don't know if I can really call the person who created it lazy. Even the simplest games, a game like Undertale, which is simple by a lot of today's standards, is an incredibly difficult labor. It's sometimes hard to imagine if you're not creating what it means when you have the limited resources. You can't just give everybody what they want. You've got to make a choice. And creation is an arduous, time-consuming, laborious task. It's not that simple. And yet, we'll demand more from somebody who's already given us a lot. If we don't like how things go in a particular season of a show, we will yell and scream and say, do it again and do it right, do it better, reshoot this season, reshoot this ending. This comes from a sense of entitlement. And that I'd have to include as one of the 7 deadly fan sins. And I'm not going to get them all done by today. I'll probably be done in like 45 minutes or something. Total. From when I started this. So like I don't have a clock in front of me, but I think it's like 5:45. But if anybody does end up watching this, because I'm going to record this now and then I'm going to put it on YouTube when I'm done, more input is good as to what somebody else, because I can't just come up with those all myself, what somebody else feels like is one of the 7 deadly fan sins, or at the very least can come up with a scenario that has led to, that can lead us all to what we consider the 7 deadly fan sins. But if I had to come up with another one, it's right here. It's elitism. I'm not even sure I'm spelling that right. Elitism. Elitism is the fan sin that one fan will lord themselves over the rest by virtue of being a better fan or a truer fan than others. So I think about, I've done this many times. I'm a super elitism fan. And I think it manifests itself in 2 ways. The first way is, of course, that a truer fan will say, well, if you haven't watched this and if you haven't read this, like let's say, for example, you're a fan of a particular movie series. Let's go with Harry Potter. And you love Harry Potter, and you've watched all the movies, and you buy, you got your own robes, and you've had yourself sorted, and all this other great stuff. But maybe you haven't read the books. Well, somebody who has read the books might consider them above you, because, well, you're not a real fan unless you read the books. And I see a lot of this all over the place. There is a huge let's go mess made between people who believe that they're the real fans and those who they believe are not. The normies, the casuals. Hear that one thrown out a lot. Casual fans. The other way elitism manifests themselves is that people venomize something they love when it becomes popular. This is the old, well, I liked them before they were cool argument. So you love something, and then all of a sudden you see something you love explode in popularity and go out into the mainstream. And now all of a sudden you're just like, nah. Well, now everybody loves it. They don't understand where it all came from. They're not the real fans. This and that. And that's another. And I've done that one a lot. I remember back in the mid-'90s when I was the world's biggest Harley Quinn fan from Batman the Animated Series. I just thought she was, amazing. Now I'm kind of over it. Just because she became the most popular character in DC. And I found myself in this elitist camp. And you know what? You guys nobody really understands what this is all about. And maybe she's not so great, and I just kind of move on to something else. Elitism is it's those are the 2 ways that I know elitism manifests itself as far as being a fan goes. And it leads to more bad behavior, for sure. It would be like somebody walking around who had a very expensive PC back in the day and played both of the original Witcher games, and meeting someone who's a huge fan of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt because they played it very recently. And they're like, well, see, you're not a real fan because you didn't play the originals. You only played this console, pleb version. And that, you sound very virtuous for being pure, for being the truest of fans. But really, a fan's a fan. And you should be grateful that something you love is loved by others. That's elitism. And can be elaborated on more, I'm sure. The one I'm having a lot of trouble describing is this one right here, because there's a little bit of sameness between the one I just described and the one I'm about to bring up. But to be fair, I've always felt like greed and gluttony were basically the same thing. So if that's, or at the very least, I won't say they're interchangeable, but there's a lot of overlap between those two. So this one is something I think is very commonplace, and that's gatekeeping. And what gatekeeping means is that fans basically encircle around an existing fan base and aren't necessarily willing to accept new, normies, and they don't. They like it how it is, and they're just trying to keep everybody else out. They don't want what they love becoming mainstreamify. They don't want more accessibility in the things they love, because accessibility means more people, and they like their club to be exclusive, and that's sort of what gatekeeping is. I know Wasabi Anime, when I went to see them at Fan Expo, that was gatekeeping. That was somebody who was like, my old show is the best, these new shows are terrible, and that's because we're the real fans, and that's for other people, and it's not even really Transformers, or it's not even this, it's not even that. And gatekeeping, I don't have too many examples of, but it's one of those things where you kind of know it when you see it. This was not something I particularly ran into as I did all the reading on Undertale. But it still exists in a way, I feel like, because there was a lot of cases at the time when this game came out on PC, and it was a PC game, and it had a lot of features that were PC specific. And by putting it out on console, that was sort of like giving it to the masses, and I see a lot of posts going, well, they're not going to get the true experience of this particular game. They won't understand what's so great about it because they'll be playing a simplified console version. And I saw a lot of posts to that, like basically saying, like, look, this is our circle, everyone else should just kind of keep out. And gatekeeping also leads into the next one, which is this. And this one might be the number one. It's vying for the number one. And that is ownership. As far as the 7 deadly fan sins go, for anybody who's just joining, that's what we've kind of moved on to. I intended to play Undertale. I played Undertale. I loved it. I tried to jump into the fan community, and I found out the fan community had already kind of dissolved into infighting many years before, which was disappointing, which got me into thinking of what are the 7 deadly fan sins. And ownership is definitely one. And if there is anything that is problematic for a fan, it's when they take ownership of something in which they are a fan. So where's the problem? When you're a fan of something, and I mean a real fan, you don't just like it, you don't just consume it. It bonds with you on an emotional level, in which case they're just kind of difficult to separate. Meaning any criticism leveled at the thing you love becomes a personal attack. I've been guilty of this one far too many times, taking ownership. And it leads to almost all of the fan crimes that I've come to read about and come to basically see, which is you take something, and now once it's a part of you, every little thing has the potential to poke at your soul, because something you love is either changing or being criticized, because it's not something you love, it's something you own. Oh. I'm talking to myself and talking out here. When you own something, when you take ownership of it, And it's not just the criticism, and it's not just the changes. You feel like you get a vote, almost as if you're a shareholder. So let's say I'm a big fan of Gargoyles, which was a show from the 90s, which has a very, very devoted fan base for a very good reason. It's an amazing show. And let's say Gargoyles does come back. There's been a lot of rumors since Disney Plus came out about Gargoyles getting a movie, or Gargoyles getting a new show, or getting something, like some sort of revival for Gargoyles. Well, those fans who have stuck around for the last 25 years are going to want to have something to say about what Gargoyles becomes. And that's where ownership comes into play. They feel like, and even if they don't necessarily admit it, you feel like that if you're not consulted on it, and there's no reason you would be, you are not a shareholder, but if you're not consulted on it, they didn't consider the fans in this particular decision. Every little change is going to get scrutinized as if you were at a shareholders meeting going, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it's like, well, I didn't vote on that. I didn't say that was okay. That's ownership. I can't believe what they're doing to this character. I can't believe what they're doing to this character. I can't believe they're doing this. Do they ever think of the fans? They obviously don't like their fans. That's a case of ownership. Because, quite frankly, unless you are an actual owner of the IP, you don't really have a say in the direction in which it goes. Which isn't always great, I admit. There are lots of IP holders who have taken characters I love and sent them in directions that I don't love. But that's just something I have to live with. And in the case of ownership, you have to be able to separate yourself from that which you love. Like me, I'm separating myself from Picard and Riker. I got the shirt and the gifts, and I love it. But man, I'm really more of a Cisco Nerys guy, and if there's only a campaign for them, I'd definitely be voting for them. Although I don't know how you vote for Benjamin Sisko, considering he's currently a non-corporeal being living in an interdimensional wormhole. But that sounds to me like someone who has a lot of experience. That's something I would vote for. Ownership. You feel like anything involving what you love needs your approval. And these are 4. I'm working on the others. I don't know if anybody has any input. So I'll be posting this video to YouTube. Again, nobody's watching it. But that's not the point. Again, I'm not crazy. I'm talking to a camera. I'm not talking to myself. That's all that matters. So I'm going to post this video. And I'm probably going to come back and do more stuff on IG Live, just so I don't look crazy, which is funny, ironically, because if I'm posting a bunch of videos ranting about absolutely nothing that matters, it'll look a little crazy. So I'll take these up. I'll bring them up again. See if I can work out the remainder. See if I can find my way out in figuring out what all 7 of the 7 deadly fan sins are there. And as for Undertale, oh, did I scratch this? Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's bad. I don't like that. Oh, no. Don't scratch that. It wasn't expensive, but you want things to last, I should stop poking this board. I'm going to probably come back and start doing these, try to do these every Saturday and post them for anybody who didn't see the beginning. Not that anybody really cares, but again, and maybe these, it's cheaper than therapy. So, I appreciate it. Just because nobody's listening and just because nobody's watching doesn't mean you shouldn't then try and encourage people to be good for one another. I fail at it every day, and I hope to do better tomorrow, and everyone should hope to do better tomorrow. I'll shut this one down for now, and I'll get back to it some other time. So, excellent.